scams control. Basically, that's what it is. I was in advertising marketing for well over 2 decades, and that's basically what it is. I know back in the day, they had called marketing and advertising, it was called, basically propaganda, and that got a bad rap for the most part, and then the story goes it evolved over time. Marketing and advertising is one thing, propaganda is this evil entity. It was Edward Bernays, that kind of stuff. If you look that up, the nephew of Sigmund Freud, that's Bernays. But anyways, I want to go through this. I'm just, think about it. Think about what has gone on these last few years, and even before that, what has been going on for the last 5, 10 decades prior. A lot of people weren't awake to it, and I understand that's fine. I mean, with the government schools, that kind of deal, it doesn't matter. But if people are waking, and the lions are ready to fight, the people are becoming aware. That is what really matters, especially now, this juncture. So think about it now. This whole scam, whatever you want to call it, with these lockdowns, the distancing, the government bullying, basically that's what it was. They, in essence, have coerced, forced people into, in different countries, different settings, that kind of stuff, by way of, if you don't do this, you're going to get this. If you don't do this, you're going to go to prison. If you don't do this, you won't be able to get this. If you don't do this, you won't have your job. XYZ, you know how it all went down. So with that, there's a big push, and there still is, in different places, to separate families, separate friends, separate communities from operating as a whole. As invite your neighbor in, don't talk to your neighbor, don't have huge family gatherings, don't have huge family, whether it's for any sort of gathering for the 4th of July or Independence Day or any other holidays. Don't do that. Don't, become one again as a family and talk to each other and interact in person, because we know the whole hoax scam thing that went down. Well, it feels like that's still there to a certain point. It's still there, and you can see it. People are still not acting as they did 3, 4 years ago, even 2 years ago. Today, they're still not acting just right. Not all as bad as it was early on in this whole beginning of this thing after 2019, but you can tell, and at least I can tell. And will that ever come back? I don't know. I don't have an answer for this, but if there's not if people aren't out there trying to live beyond and not listen to all this propaganda and all these things that the government and these companies, it's fascism basically, when you have government working, hand in hand as a tandem with these other huge corporations and companies. That's fascism. That's what it is. So just think about these few things here. You have the coronavirus, COVID, and all of its variants, whatever you want to call them. Now WEF, World Economic Forum, and WHO have been talking, conspiring, if you will, coercing, if you will, international emergency for COVID and or climate drain. Yes, I call it drain. Not climate change, it's climate drain, because it drains everybody's money, everybody's savings, everybody's freedoms, everything that they have. Just like with the families, family connections, friend connections, that kind of stuff. Their jobs, it drains. It's climate drain, basically. So they're considering a national emergency for it now, still, for climate drain and the whole COVID deal. And who knows what else they're going to throw in there if they have to get people scared, because it's all on fear. Get people scared enough, instill enough fear and then come in as a hero and say, we have the answer. Horrendous flu outbreak, maybe they're going to call it, maybe. Or maybe a huge monkeypox, or now the WHO, World Health Organization, saying, no, you have to call it Mpox because monkeypox is offensive, whatever. And I know early on, I mean, when they started this whole monkeypox thing, or this Mpox thing, it failed to induce fear into the majority of the people that it wanted to. But maybe that was just the first step. Maybe they got to, put something else on it, give it a twist, a spin, add something to it, or something. And maybe this whole Mpox thing is going to be part of the next steps along this climate drain and this whole COVID deal. And maybe it's a flu thrown in there too. Who knows? Swine flu 14, whatever. They're going to try that again maybe, or some other kind of flu, bird flu, swine flu combination. Who knows? So with all this stuff, look into these things, please, and just give it a little insight. Don't just do your basic Google searches and you're watching on the television or the dumbed down tube, that kind of stuff. Do a little bit of research. Or don't, whatever. It's up to you. But it's in your best interest. I think everyone's best interest to be informed on all things as much as you can before you step forward and do something someone's telling you to do, or don't do something someone's telling you not to do. So you have to make your own choices. But anyways, I just wanted to get this on, and there's some things to think about. Just remember, and maybe you don't remember because you haven't been around 90 years, but maybe you've heard of some of these things. But just think about this. Over the last 90 years, there was a mini ice age that they tried to scare people. And it was going. It was on Time magazine and that kind of stuff. And then the swine flu of 1976. How about that? If you look into that, you'll see what happened with the injections that they pushed for that, and then it got pulled off the market because of some deaths and some major things that had happened early on in that deal. And the military is involved, and they tried to get a whole bunch of people in the military with shots in their arms and that kind of stuff, and they did to a point. But do a little research on that, if you would. How about acid rain? Acid rain. I remember that this was the 80s. Acid rain was the next huge deal. That's you got to fear that. You got to be scared of that. And then there's the ozone layer. How about the ozone layer? Remember that? Ozone layer has got this huge hole in it, and who knows what's going to happen. We are, society, world life might be done in a decade or two, is what I heard in the 80s. SARS, the first round of SARS. How about that? And swine flu H1N1. That was another big deal that they were ramped up and started to get the fear in there, and they wanted to push through it and go for it. But for some reason, it didn't happen, and they backed off. And I think they backed off because they're like, the time's not right. The time is not right. We don't have society dumped it down enough or believe in enough from us just yet to step forward with this. Just my opinion. How about Ebola? Not saying Ebola's not a real deal. Who am I to judge? But Ebola, I remember that was a huge scare. And they tried pushing that. No matter where you're living, that kind of stuff. Just think about these things a little bit. Also, over the last 90 years, doctors, government, promoted cigarettes. Cigarettes are good. They're good for asthma. They're good for your cough. They're good to soothe your throat. That kind of stuff. There was advertising for it, ads, commercials. Also, over the last 90 years, government told people, you know what? It's healthy that you're drinking this water with fluoride in it. And they convinced the municipalities and that kind of stuff to get this fluoride in your water to drink because it's good for your teeth and healthy for your teeth. And a whole bunch of propaganda was there, and then they started putting in toothpaste, that kind of deal. And if you do a little research on that, well, the fluoride that they're putting in the water system and this other stuff, that's the same thing as rat poison. It's not the fluoride that you get from your water that maybe in your well, if you have a well, it's minimal, it's natural. It's not this rat poison, it's not this thing that comes from, it's an offshoot, it's a byproduct, it's a waste product from aluminum. That's basically the fluoride that they're pumping in your water now. And they have been for decades. It's a waste product from aluminum. That's what it is. Look into that a little bit. And it's also used for rat poison. How about lobotomy? Lobotomy, what is a lobotomy? Lobotomy was something that psychiatrists thought it would be a good idea, and they thought if you take these 2 long ice picks and you can put them in people's eyes and hammer them in people's eyes until they hit the brain, then lobotomize them and take out their front lobe or a portion of it, and then it'll help them, because they're seeing a psychiatrist, and that was the deal. That was a lobotomy, and they were doing that, and tens of thousands of people had done this. 50,000 people had done this, and from them, there's retardation from that. They are like children. A lot of them, they can't live on their own. They can't function in society on their own. That kind of stuff. They lost a lot of feeling and meaning. They lost who they were as a whole from being lobotomized. Okay? Also over the last 90 years. Heroin for your cold. That was the greatest thing. Here's heroin for your cold. On that same note, also in the last 90s, soothing syrup for babies. This was the greatest thing. Soothing syrup for babies. You give it to your babies. It helps them sleep. It helps them not be fussy. It helps with whatever else they're going through, calms them down, stop them from crying as much, that kind of stuff. Well, what it was morphine. And from that, lots and lots of babies had died from overdose of morphine. They became addicted to morphine, and you had these morphine babies, if they were able to survive. Also, for the last 90 years, methamphetamine, meth, diet pills, they were all the rave in the mid-1900s. They were all the rave. So 1950, 1940, even 1960, it was still happening. And meth pills, diet pills, that's what they were. And it was great, and they were selling them, that kind of stuff, and everything was all well until people started dying from it and having bad reactions, becoming addicted, and having all these, if you want to call them side effects, but all these effects from the meth that they're taking from the diet pills. Also, there was many other things that had gone on in over the last 90 years, and I get a little list here. This is just on the tax level of it. These taxes didn't exist. 120 years ago, roughly, whatever. Now, over the last 90 years, we got accounts receivable tax. This is just a fraction, just a grain, if you will. But anyways, we got accounts receivable tax, we got building permit tax, we got CDL license tax, we got cigarette tax, corporate income tax, dog license tax, you have excise taxes, you have federal income tax, you have federal unemployment tax, that's FUTA. We got fishing license tax, you have fuel permit tax, gasoline tax, hunting license tax, inheritance tax, inventory tax, IRS charges, IRS interest charges tax. You have penalties, which is tax on top of tax. IRS interest charges IRS penalties. It's a tax. It's tax on top of tax. You have liquor tax. There's luxury taxes. You have marriage license tax, Medicare tax. You have personal property tax. You have real estate tax, service charge tax, Social Security tax. You have road usage tax, recreational usage vehicle tax, and sales tax on top of your recreational vehicles. Then you have school tax, you have state income tax, you have state unemployment tax, that's SUTA. We have telephone federal excise tax. Then you have telephone federal universal service fee tax. Then you have telephone federal state and local surcharge tax. Then you have telephone minimum usage surcharge tax. Then you have telephone recurring and non-recurring charges tax. Then you have telephone state and local tax. Then you have telephone usage charge tax. And then there's utility taxes, vehicle license, registration tax, vehicle sales tax, watercraft registration tax, well permit tax, workers' compensation tax. You have your personal your taxes on everything. Sales tax on top of sales tax. Different sales taxes for different communities or different counties that you live in. And I know back when I was living in Minnesota, there you had your county tax for wherever you were living, but if you worked in Minneapolis or lived in Minneapolis, your taxes were a little higher because you were paying for the Metrodome. There was an added tax to your sales taxes for the Metrodome that was built in the 80s, and it was, for the sports ball teams, the Vikings and the Twins and stuff. But after that, they demolished that and replaced it. You still pay that Metrodome tax, that heightened tax, sales tax. The Metrodome fee is still on there. It's like, how can that be? Well, once a tax is in, it really never goes away. I mean, either they call it something else, or they figure out how to get it, but once they put a tax in, it's never going away. I mean, unless there's a huge uprising of millions and millions and millions of people and stop this insanity, but it's there. So it's that ridiculous. So I'm just going over this. I just want people to think about this. All this stuff, all this propaganda that is being pushed and still is pushed. And it's pushed in the movies and television shows and everywhere else. I mean, it's crazy. You got to think about this. I know they're telling me it's for my safety. I know they're telling me it's for my grandma's safety or my mom's safety or my dad's safety. I know they're telling me it's for my child's safety. I know they're telling me it's for the safety of the community. I know they're telling me it's good for me. It's good for all of us because we're all in this together. I know what they're telling me. I know what they're saying. But that doesn't mean that's what's happening. That doesn't mean that's reality. That doesn't mean that's what's true. That doesn't mean that's absolute. Ever. And when it comes from their mouths, government's mouths, most companies, corporations' mouths, they're saying that because there's an agenda there. They're saying that because there's something at the end they want to accomplish or they want to, get across or pass or whatever. Whatever they're saying, it's just music. It's just to make you accept and believe. That's my opinion. But anyways, I just think about this stuff. Look into some things. Don't always say, yes, sir, no, sir, I believe you. You want to not trust but verify. You want to question and then verify. And maybe eventually you'd be able to trust. That's at least the way I do things. Anyways, thank you for watching this. If you like this, hit the like, share, subscribe. And as always, stay vigilant, protect yourself, protect your family, protect your health, and protect your wealth.